So, I've got some more painting to do. Yesterday, just painted the silver and the greys. Nothing particularly interesting, but it's the majority of the model, so got that done quick, so we can start looking at the other colours now and actually adding some colour to it. So I think I'm going to be starting with some what's it called? Balthazar Gold. A nice copper kind of colour. Do a lot of the mechanical details in that, which helps them stand out well against the metal. Let me turn the camera light on. Yeah. Balthazar Gold. I do this for pretty much all my AdMech builds because it's, like I said, I highlight mechanical details with it, and I think it helps draw your eye to like certain parts if you want to draw attention to it. And it is something and another thing I do, which is inspired by Emerson Tung's works, where you can see on here like some of the smaller mechanical details, like one of the hip connectors is copper there, and a lot on this one too, where you can see some like details by the knee, on the waist, on the upper arm, and on the shoulder. So yeah, that kind of gold, copper, brass type of colour. So that's what we're going to start off with. Since it's just details, it won't take too long, so I think after that I'm going to move on to either orange or a very light blue, just to get some of the optics. So my very professional cardboard palette. Got my brush rinser. Got somewhere to dry my brush once it's rinsed. And going in with my usual brush of the Raphael Kaminski France 8404 size 0. Don't need anything too big since it is just picking out a few bits here and there. Just making sure the paint is all nicely shook up. It is looking a little kind of too thick to work with. Just want to make sure it's really shook up. Might even add a bit of water to it just to be sure. Have a pipette somewhere. I'm not always great at reminding to keep the lids fully closed and make sure paint isn't clogging them up, which is a big downside to a lot of the Citadel pots, but sometimes it does just happen where paint dries out too much. Need to add some water to it just to try and keep it going. Mic is super quiet. Okay. Is this any better? Did try and change the levels a little. Great. So, unless there's anything else that is a glaring issue that needs fixing, we can get on to painting. So, the legs only got hit with silver before because all of the grey bits for their armour that I got up on the sprues here, that's going to be, all the greys separated out, but now I need to really get highlight, and so this is probably going to be the area where I have the most coppers to pick out. Don't need a lot on the brush because it is just a few bits here and there. Also going to try and keep in mind like what areas of here will be covered up by the armor, just so I don't waste time painting stuff that nobody's even going to see in the end. Was also wondering if there's a better kind of camera layout I can try and find for this painting, because it's like a full view of my desk, but it's not particularly close up to the camera, like I'm just in this lower quarter of the screen, so might be a better way to show it. But there's not a huge I don't know, reasoning behind what I'm picking out with the coppers here. It's just stuff that it's like, oh, this area doesn't have anything in this color. I'll try and find something to add there, and that'll add add some, I don't know, visual variety. Just so it isn't all just a metal. I will be going over those hoses, tubes, wires, whatever you want to call them. We'll be going over those in a different color later. I've dry brushed them, the metal like everything else, but I am gonna go over that with a coat of black Templar contrast because I like that works well with like the texture it has. Oh fuck. Ooh. Okay. First break of the stream. It was kind of not super securely placed before, but let's see what we can do. Just checking how it fits around the waist, because did just break, well, a waist connector did just fall off. So I want to avoid using super glue where I can, because super glue does tend to, if you use too much, it like leaves a kind of residue around the area as well, which isn't very nice. Let's see if I can pin it. Now this was a Cataphren weapon barrel that I did chop a lot off of to adjust it and make it a waist piece, so it was kind of held together fairly weakly, so it's not too surprising it broke off, but it's still not great. Got some paper clip to pin it. Just taking a look to see where on the model I now need to also pin to have it attach properly. Let's make a flat surface. Flat surface to drill into with just cutting an edge off. That's pretty much on the right place. It won't be a perfect fix, but like I said, this is on the like kind of waist area at the side, so if nothing else, it will be covered up by the arm sitting, well, resting at its side, so it's not going to be a noticeable problem. Okay, that lines up and we can glue it in. And then just see how it all reattaches together now. We're good. Okay, cool. And we can get back to the actual painting. Now I've got a good break it and fix it, barely 20 minutes in. We were highlighting copper and brass details. Just a bit of water to make sure the paint isn't too dried out. Well, it's not been too long, but I know my paint dries out quicker than ideally it should, just because I don't use a wet palette, but my cheapo cardboard one has worked out well enough for me so far. I'm just picking out any details on here that I particularly like the look of, or where there's no other details picked out nearby yet. Just so it gives some, not colour depth, but colour variety to the model. And just checking my references to see how they do it as well. Because another method I use to add some variety to the metal is it's been dry brushed with the Iron Warriors, which is a dark silver, the Iron Hand Steel with as a light dry brush highlight. I'm adding the copper now. I mentioned I put Black Templar contrast over some of the hoses, some of the tubes, and another way is taking that Iron Hand Steel, that one I used to highlight before, and hitting any areas with it which will get a lot of wear and tear, like the inner parts of pistons that get extended out. That tends to be a good place to paint them with a brighter silver, just because it shows that they get worn a lot, they get pushed around a lot, so they won't have the chance to accumulate much dirt. And found a nice big pattern on the hip piece to make copper. Oh. Fortunately, these are only small areas, so they dry quickly, because otherwise I would end up with this paint all over my hands very quickly. Without thinking too much about it, I just grabbed it by the sides of the hips, which is where I just painted some copper. Anything on the back of the hip we can do while we're at it? Bit muffled sounding. Or is that just me not speaking clearly, not the audio itself? Trying to find some details on the waist now, because this is an area which is just all random mechanical details. So there should be a good few chunks here to highlight. Those side lines on that piston kinda, those are some very small details, but I think they look particularly good when made that different colour. Ring. And this waste piece also does have some cables running, so I think some for the normal non-pattern cables, I think I'll just paint those red or whatever when I get around to them later. But I think I will paint these kind of segmented ones copper. Was on the edge about it, but they're a big enough chunk, and once I fix that, then I think that'll be good. So that's some kind of subtle variety I've added by having the copper in there. So let's see what else. Checking all the armor sprue, all the armor held upon skewers, but that is just armor, so I don't think so there. The arms, what are the arms going to have? Got all these kind of pseudo vein wires. That one's going to be a good one. A few other spots, like just some random circles sticking out from the base. Like forearm tube I made. Well, made it with. Now I've got to be careful to not touch the wet paint. There are some like dots on the side of the elbow joint where I think that would look good copper. Just going to check the references again to see how there's anything they do. So I can see some copper just behind the bicep armor there. Same there. So since that's consistent on both the main pieces I'm looking to for inspiration, let's see if there's any bicep pieces we can make copper. There is that kind of there's a kind of inner ring on the upper arm piece. So I'm just going to hit all of that with copper. I think that is alright for that part. Just accidentally painting myself a little. Just do the same to the other arm now. Oh man, there's some rivets on the side of here. I forgot to paint silver yesterday. I'll hit them when I do, when I'm wrapping up the final set of cleaning and highlighting. Okay, no, there's something else I want to highlight copper here, because I also use this as like, hey, this is a detail I added I want to draw attention to. And so that's what I'm going to do here, where I added this kind of like bicep inner piston thing, and I definitely want to highlight that, so I'm going to hit that with copper too once I've done the rest of it. I need to go back and do that on the one I missed earlier. Okay, so there, I added that detail because it was kind of a gap in the original model that could, like, you could see all the way through the elbow joint, which didn't really look that good. But I filled it with like one of the things that hangs off the back of the Skitari backpack normally. So something I have an abundance of at least. Okay. Next, let's look at the chest, because it's got a lot of exposed details around the shoulders, so that'll be a lot of places to look at. Do we do the Admech symbol on the side of the gun while we're at it? Let me check how I've painted. Let me check how I've painted that on other models first. So yeah, that's one that's there, and then the. Okay, yeah, let's do that. So I also painted one of these, like, you can see there's got like these 3 rings holding the weapon mount. Well, the weapon mount is made up of these 3 rings, and so on the previous Dune crawler I did, the Spider Tank one, I painted the middle ring copper, and I quite like the look of that. So I'm going to do that idea again. So I was thinking, oh, is that too much copper? But it is. This piece is going to mostly be coloured because it's either going to be sitting in the chest there, or it will have the weapon on the front. So I don't feel bad if it is adding too much colour here, because it won't all be seen anyway. However, now, with that big copper right in the middle of it, I do need to put it on a skewer just to make sure I've got a firm grasp on it without getting paint all over my fingers to paint the rest of it. Now this parts holder I made, it's like a crocodile clip on the end of a bamboo skewer. Uh, it's how I prepare all my models for like spray painting. It is like a trick I picked up from the Gunpla side of model building. It's I made these to hold Gunpla parts to spray paint them, and they just came in particularly handy for Warhammer 2 because I don't particularly want to, I don't know, buy any of Games Workshop's parts holders because they are way more expensive than crocodile clips on bamboo skewers. Okay, so that is the symbol and that part painted. Uh, this is a little, I don't know, piece that slots into the back of it, and it's all mechanical, so let's see what we can pick out on here. I see at least the Adeptus Mechanicus logo I can go for, but there's probably some other things on here that will work too. Just being careful to make sure I get every tooth on the cog. I think that's what the bits that stick out on cogs are called, teeth. Because the more precise I am here, the less time I need to spend cleaning up. And there's just a few wires coming out the side, and they have this like protective like shell where they attach. And so I'm painting that extra bit that sticks out copper. And then that makes me think, oh, for the wires themselves, I might paint them red because that's a nice colour I use for wires. I use dark corn red, which is kind of dull, so it's good for detailing, but not when you want the detail to stand out. That works. Just thinking about this again. There is a spot on the back of the waist that I want to hit, which I thought about before but got distracted with something else. Because what use is all those random mechanical parts added for detail if I'm not going to actually draw attention to them? That looks good. Okay, and do this weapon while I'm at it. Just copying the way I painted it the other time by There's a few areas on the struts on the outside which look good in copper, as well as the kind of, I don't know, some rings on the middle of it too. It's painting a very fine detail with some of the rings on the, I don't know, the beams that stick out of the weapon barrel itself. So painting a detail on a detail. And then another part of this that is tricky to paint is the the rings on the middle of the barrel itself, because it has all those struts coming out covering it, so need to be very precise here. Which the supports on the outside very much limit where it can be reached. So I'm reaching where I can without getting too close to accidentally painting the stuff around, and just moving on to the next area, and I'm just gonna rotate and flip and just get where I can the easiest first before worrying about full coverage. I think that is all the copper I need to do on that part. And now the chest. Make sure we get a good amount of copper on the brush. See if there's anywhere on the underside that would fit a good detail or two. While I'm here, I'm just also considering if any other colours I want to paint other bits nearby. Like I see the wires coming off for like this, the bulbs, whatever, the housing for the floodlights, because I have these wires coming off, and I'm thinking, do I want to do those orange? If I want to add more orange to the model, or would that be too noticeable and bright for like the underside area? And so if I want them a wire colour but not too noticeable, then I'll paint them a red or maybe a green. Uh, And are there any of the segmented wires I also want to make copper while I'm here? I know that'd be too big to make it, but if I don't paint it copper, then what colour will I do it? I would think that one, but there's a detail there I want to make copper instead. So what other kind of metallic colour could I make it? I could just leave it metal, I could do a dark metal, I could do warplock bronze. I'll hit either sides of this kind of canister type piece. And the dots that are on there, and this right there, and on the other side too, it's more noticeable there. That's very specifically a piece I put in to match the artwork. Like if you can see, there's a kind of similar kind of semicircular casing or whatever in front of the armpit and the lower, yeah, in the lower front part of the armpit. And I found a part to replicate that, so I definitely want to replicate the color on it too. But this other one is way more covered by wires. That's going to be a tad tricky to reach. Let's see, how did I paint this part on the other Doom Crawler? Oh. Left it grey. So I will do the same here. I will go and grab that and put it on my desk, just because I'm probably also going to reference it later to my good old spider tank. Just because this has the Doomcrawler chest too, that I'm probably going to see how stuff looks painted on there and just do the same. Let's just have him sit over there, also in the background. And we can get back to finding out details to pick out here. What else? Because this whole area is full of stuff. I'm just making sure I'm not touching anywhere, holding it by anywhere that has paint on. Yeah, those things either side of that. Armpit canister, I'm just gonna call it for convenience sake. It's kind of vent there, it looks nice, which I want to pick out. And how does like the upper shoulder details look on there? Those are all metal and similarly all metal. But I don't want to do them all metal here because I don't know, my scheme does have a tad more copper, so I am going to see just these kind of ring bits in the middle of it sticking out the top. I'm going to paint those copper. And do want to add a tad more, so there is one big wire. That might be a bit too much copper, but let's try and find out. That should be a... with that addition of that one copper, big chunky copper pipe, that should be enough, and I'll just have to find a duller colour to do the other copper pipes, well, other armoured pipe sections. Because I don't want to have them a different colour, but I've already used enough of this one. Seeing if there's any details on the roof of this thing now. Because there is this big, like, viewport armoring that I painted copper on the spider, but that was a bit too much, but it didn't matter on that one since it is facing backwards. So I might not replicate that detail on this one and see how that turns out. Are there any other things I can paint copper on here? Yeah, there's a few of the kind of patches on the some roof armor. There's a few bits on the turret hatch, turret joint, its neck, I guess, that I'm going to pick out and just see how it looks and not worry too much because The neck itself isn't going to be particularly seen because the turret is big and will cover most of it. That circular detail. I mentioned I did pick out a few of the kind of outside wires here. Yesterday I picked them out as a metal detail, and they would have kind of copper coverings to protect where they come in and out. That's exactly what I'm going to do. And I believe that should be the chest part done now. And finally, let's see what details on the turret head there are to pick out. So I know there's a few that come to mind where on parts I've painted before, like on the grenade launcher tubes, there is a nice square that looks good when picked out. Some tiny bits on the back of the kind of floodlight. There are these like circles which look like they connect the I know the pivot to where the inner mechanisms of that connect. And so I'm gonna do a nice dot for that circle. Just it's be kind of lacking in colour otherwise. May regret it later, but whatever. A kind of hinge on the back of the very back of the hatch. And I do want to do the hatch details, like the outside of the hatch. Because I put that on the base of this one. And I think I did something similar on my Scorpius spider tank. Yeah, that hatch there. It's barely visible, so it's not a good point of reference. Well, I think it could use some more copper anyway, so yeah, let's do that. Just making sure the sides of it are painted too, but that is a very tricky part to get. And the fancy gothic semi like fleur-de-lis type patterns too. I think that is looking good now. Take another look at all the copy stuff, see if anything needs a second coat. Or any spots I missed like that. Just making sure it's symmetrical by doing the same bits but on the inner side of the legs. And I think my brush picked up a stray hair that was left over from the dry brush yesterday, so I just want to make sure that's cleaned out. I just want to make sure the brush is nice and cleaned out too while I'm at it, since I'm going to be swapping colours now and I don't want to get any of the metallic bits in the non-metallic paint I'm swapping to now. And next will either be the orange or the light blue, very faint light blue. I think I'll go with the blue just because I want some variety. It's going from basically just shiny orange in the form of this copper or brass would be a bit too samey. So we're done with Balsa Gold and we're going to get some, I believe it is Celestra Grey. Yep, Celestra Grey. I use this, it's how I paint a lot of my like glowing optic bits. It starts off with a coat of this, and then it gets some contrast of aethematic blue over it. Now this is one of Games Workshop paints which is not very good at, like a lot of their white paints, it tends to get chunky if you kind of leave it too long, so I want to make sure it's got a good shake before I start painting with it. And while we're at it, it's been an hour in. So I'm going to stand up and take a stretch. Just so I don't get too hunched over. Oh, I really feel it in my calves. Okay, so Celestra Grey. Just for an example of what I was talking about with the Celestra Grey with the achromatic blue over it, it's how I did the eyes on this guy. And also the back of him there too. So another one we're only doing very small amounts with. So we're still fine sticking to this. Kalinsky, France, 8404 size 0. Just picking out anywhere that would be like an optic or a light or a camera or whatever. So there is not much like that on the legs. On the armour, there is going to be the kind of front hip piece, which does have a light in it. So, probably only going to need one coat of this because of what I mentioned yesterday with the dry brushing the lighter colour over the areas around the light sources. Helps, like, maybe do a bit of kind of pre-baked object source lighting, but also just lightens the area enough where we don't need too many coats of the bright paint over it. And this is painting these like light bulbs. They have the like kind of metal grid over them. I am just gonna hit all of the grid while I'm at it. I'm not trying to, but it just happens when painting such... not going to bother trying to paint around something so small since I'm going to need to paint the metal over the like grid later, so I'm just not caring if I hit it going over it now. And then working our way up the model, what's next would probably be the chest piece, I guess? Yeah. Guess there's not a lot of places this light is going to be on the model. Then elsewhere on the chest there is the kind of cyclopean eye for the sight there. I'm going to try to avoid the like armoring around it, but I'm not, well, I was about to say I'm not holding my breath, but holding my breath might actually help. just rotating it around just to make it place the model in the easiest position for me to reach all the corners of it. I'm trying not to get the paint in all the recesses, just trying to make it as the kind of even, where it leads up to is an even amount, because I want to leave those recesses dark. Because that's what a bunch of the dry brushing did. And then there's the even smaller camera, even smaller optic eye, reticle, whatever you want to call it, right below it, which is going to be a pain. That's mostly covered, and that is too risky of an area for me to stress too much about getting every single spot, so that is it for now. Oh, missed some copper places on the shoulder. Go back to that. There is the sight on the gun also, which I want to paint this grey. That's good. And finally on the head. There is the there's also like a kind of a screen and a few buttons on the grenade launcher, which I'm going to paint with this brighter colour just because I will cover them with some other contrasts later, and I'm a big fan of using contrasts for any light sources or buttons or screens, just because I feel like it's an easy way to do it, and I'm all about easy ways that save time but also look at least passable. Another loose brush hair. It's not perfect, but I was going to need to cover that area up later anyway. Any other areas with lights or optics or anything? Just checking. Okay, I'm going to go back and fix what areas I noticed I missed with copper. And then I think I will use a bright silver to do some more detailing on the metallic bits. We need to restart the music. There we go. Copper is what we wanted. Only need a little, but want to get it a nice even amount on my brush. I noticed there's the patch here I wanted to paint. And some bits on the shoulders. Shoulders. I mean, honestly, the shoulder bits don't matter too much because they will be... let's see exactly how copper the shoulders are on the inspiration pieces. None there. None there. Oh, so I don't need to worry about adding too much then. But it does just look... to me, it looks a little naked without it. Anything else I want to get while I'm here? There are kind of hinges on the, I don't know, hatches on the top. So I want to hit that. And also one on the side too. And then we can move on to the another metallic detail of the bright silver, which I used for highlighting earlier. Iron hands steel. Make sure that's nice and well shooken. And like I mentioned before, just going to try and find any areas that have a lot of movement on them, like bits of pistons, interior bits of pistons, or like the edges of other stuff, or inner parts of a joint where it doesn't have a chance to build up grime or whatever, because all of that gets worn away. I just noticed some areas specifically on the feet that are a tad plain, so I might want to try and find some more spots to copper up. Where else? There are some kind of pistons for the hip abductors here. There are some pistons around the waist for, I don't know, it's core muscles, it's... God damn it. Ah. It's fine, it's all good. Yes, there. Front side of them too. Similar thing for some parts of the, I don't know, what would be the toes, I guess? I don't know, but I'm noticing the lack of detail there, so I'm keeping the copper out to make sure to remember to hit that with it later. Think on the gun, no. On the forearms, yes, there are going to be... Look to see where that would be the equivalent of the triceps. I'm going to hit that. That's going to be the equivalent of the... That is the equivalent of the biceps, so I'm going to hit that. But I guess it was just only mainly detailing some area of the legs, but like I did say, the legs are the kind of biggest, just mostly mechanical thing out there on it. So I guess that worked. I guess that makes sense why that's going to be the most mechanical colour variation. Some of the edges of that piece there, because they're going to work like pistons holding the shoulder up and in. And nothing on the head. So what's next? More copper. And hopefully that'll be it for the copper, unless I notice any more, even more spots I missed earlier. So what bits of the mechanism that are good to be isolated in copper? There's the kind of circles at the side of the, what would be the ankle ball joint. There's that big chunk that's sticking out in the middle of the foot that I'm going to do copper. Just because if it's lacking a lot, a big spot will help. That's not bad. And then a ring on the either side of that. That's looking coppery enough now on the front. Let's just see if there's any sections on the back. There is that kind of, I don't know, joint covering in the middle of the back part of the foot, which should work nicely. And that is good, but while looking at that, there's one more thing where there's some kind of, on the back chunk of the toe, back chunk of the foot, that looks like an area that would be, I don't know, should be an armor color. So I'm going to go over that with what Mechanica Standard Grey, because that's what I used for the armor. Everywhere else, it might look a little odd because it's not got the full dry brush effect and the layering and depth and highlights that the rest of the model has on the armor, but it is just something at the back and the very bottom, so it shouldn't matter too much, so long as it just looks close enough at a glance. There we go. That's the, I don't know, back of the foot armor done, I guess. So I feel like we're ready to add another splash of a different colour in. Probably the biggest and brightest splash now, if I can work up the strength to make such a big change and start going in with the orange. I am going with some rat skin flesh, which is a kind of slightly duller orange. Sometimes I use Jacquero orange, but I'm cautious not to, make this way too colourful, because this is like one of the brightest things on the model, so it's already standing out a lot. Tend to focus on painting a lot and forget to drink, so when I finally do take a drink I realise how thirsty I am. So what we're going to do with the orange is, do we do the stripes now? Because if you look at both this one, look at the forearm, it's got some orange stripes there along around the shoulders, and similar case with this one where it's got some stripes on the wrist. And I do like to add orange lines, so this is a kind of good fit. A spot, I'm not sure whether I want to do like an orange stripe right down the middle of this, right down the middle of the front, because I think that'll be a bit tad too noticeable. And well, for now I'll just use the orange and pick out like a few wires. Don't think I'll do any on the forearms, because I will be doing like the wrap around the wrist line thing. So I'll just, for now, I'll try to find a few short wires here to do that with. Okay, that works excellently. There's one coming out here from the underside of the turret. And then on the kind of mirrored side, instead of at the front on the right, we're going to go at the back on the left. Because I'm just using these as an excuse to bring out a splash of orange onto the colour scheme as a whole. But then for the rest of the wires, I'm going to, I don't know, paint them almost like veins, where I'm going to have red ones and then a kind of bluey green ones. So that's what I'm going to save like the forearm for, because that's a place that, oh hey, that has veins and works well for my, I don't know, my biomechanical ideas. Because you noticed when I was talking about, which pistons, which areas face a lot of movement, and I was talking about, that bicep area, that tricep area, that's something that I find is useful design reference. Talking about, that's on the underside, so I wanted, how can I sit it to dry? Like that? Hmm. Gonna sit that to rest on. Tad awkward now, finding somewhere to rest it where it's not touching any dry paint. That away? No. I will actually just sit it on the legs. There we go. Is that really it for the orange wires? Is there anywhere else that's not the forearms? Because I know the forearms are going to have the wraparound. Do I do this big chunky wire on the head? Let's see. Just seeing if there's any precedent for it on the inspiration models. Fuck it, I'll try it on this big wire leading to the light on the head, and if not, I'll just go over it with a darker red later. That is a tad bright, but like I said, can go over it with a red later. Speaking of which, do I actually not make it a later and do I do the red now? Or while I've got the orange out, Okay, so the forearm, the wrist lines, markings, whatever, what we have on this guy and what we have on this guy with the orange at the wrists, well, orange and red at the wrists. I'm going to use some masking tape. And try to figure out exactly where the wrist markings go and how thick they need to be. So just looking more at the example inspiration. They are on the, I don't know, definitely above the halfway line, like at the front quarter. So let's see. And there. A tad behind the wrist handle, I guess. That's how it works. I'm just trying to press it down to make sure the tape sticks well enough. I'm just going to need to mark the other side of it off too. Just want a very thin line. All the different rough areas, like the armor sticks out, has stopped it forming a nice even line. So I'm going to see if there's any better way I can press it down, but I might just have to deal with it for now and then go over and correct the line it back up a bit more neater later, a bit more neatly later. I'm going to need one a bit longer than that, just so it can go all the way around. detailed it too well and added too much texture for my own good. Did too good a job detailing the forearms. That's affecting me later. Tad rough, but like I said, I'd have to do my best to clean it up later. Okay, and then while I'm at it, I do also want to put some markings on the floor part too. So I'm gonna look at my references for that. Because there are some specific types of like markings and hazard/warning stripes I want to copy. The ones on the example are kind of thin lines that new to me, but I'm giving it a shot. Just trying to figure out how I could make a stencil for that pattern with tape. Just want to make sure it is kind of symmetrical and lined up as neat as possible. Nope. That works. Then I want another thin line, want to make this a thin line, so I need a strip of tape going perpendicular is the word. that works, and I'm just gonna press it down into this, the very edge of where that meets up with this wire I previously run down. Guess I'm going to do it in two parts. I'm going to do the outline box of it, and then I'm going to do the stripes across it. The pattern on the floor, I'm looking at and got the reference in front of me. It's a bit more yellow than it is orange, so I might actually do it with a different colour. But I'm already masking everything off, so why not? Just trying to kind of match up masking tape on the opposite side of the wire too, just to have it all be even. Ah man, I was just thinking how much hassle I would have saved myself if I don't know, would have done the wires differently or added them later or something, but whatever. I'm doing what I can now. Dropping everything, Jesus. I remember correctly, I did the markings for my terrain piece where I did hazard stripes with a similar method. I did those with Avaland Sunset. So I guess I'll use that again because that is a good go-to yellow for it, I found. Okay. Whew. Jesus Christ, I'm only half done with that because I need to do the other stripes later. When I'm taking off the masking tape later, remind me to only take off the middle two stripes, not the outer two stripes. And where I am now, I can start dry brush stippling the orange onto the forearms. Now I was thinking, should I do it anywhere else to match? Like, should I do a ring on the thighs too? Because it's not on here, but I can see why it would be. Or maybe around the ankles? Nah, too late to rethink everything now. But dry brush palette. Medium size or large size? Medium size, want more precision. There's a small piece of the model I'm doing this on. Now this is a kind of thin, it's a wet paint, so you need to dry it out considerably before. Okay, that works. And I mentioned this yesterday, but using this method and just like brushing with a normal brush would cause a lot of, I don't know, spillover. So I'm stippling, I'm tapping, and applying the paint that way. And this will need a few layers. But I like it as a method to do stripes. That's the first coat of one arm. I think I'll do like 3 coats maybe at least. And this will need cleanup with a grey later. Now the worst part, the most annoying part is just waiting for it to dry before you can do the next. So let's take a minute to chill. Okay, so I am back. I think I might have muted myself for a while, but oh well. I'm just refilled my water. Just gonna take a stretch before I lock in for another hour of painting or so. Whew. And then we are going to start painting some stripes on the base in yellow, and also start painting more of the wires and cables on the model itself. It still has a bit of orange in from dry brushing those lines. However, it is a pretty similar paint I'm going to be using next anyway, so it doesn't matter too much. In fact, I actually might not use this brush at all. Let's give that a thorough clean, but since it is the base and it is a larger area, I will go with the large brush. Still a bit orange, but that's just dry brushes for you. They take in the paint too well. So just adjusting my overhead light so I can see a bit better. Okay. Just stippling it on because that's a good way to get a bit of a rough texture, and I like that inbuilt weathering because it is like on the ground where a lot of machinery goes over and a lot of mechs presumably step, so airbrushing might be a better use for this, but I do not have an airbrush, so I make do with my dry brushing. And I'd say that is a good amount for one coat. We risk taking off a bit if we dry brush too much harder. So that goes for that, and then while that's drying, let's paint some more wires. Really going for the forearm veins on this now. It's particularly awkward because it's like going between like a gap in the like the wrist and the forearm armor, so I've got to be careful to not overspill anywhere else. And I'll do one of the other wires at the back of the forearm too, or at the upper arm. Bit of overspill, but can clean that up later. And time to do the same on the other forearm. It's a more awkwardly placed wire between the wrist and the forearm armor. But I'm not going to worry too much if it's not completely covered, because funnily enough it will be covered. It'll be covered by the like most of the hand, so it shouldn't be a particularly visible area. And then on the other side there is going to be on the inside. I think that is good. Let's see if we can point the light in a way where it's not reflecting directly into the camera. Or is it a camera light? Either way. Yeah, colouring the wires on that. I'm going to put that away. Spend ages cleaning this brush. Because that red is, it's a great red, it's very strong. Great for coverage, terrible for brush cleaning. Then we can get back to the hazard stripe markings. Need some fresh yellow. Just want to get that brush out of the way because I don't want to knock it or do anything to ruin the point, because it is a very nice brush. And back to stippling on some markings. That was a nice layer. And then we can, while that dries, we can do one other wire colour. I'm going to go with a greeny blue. Or should I go with a darker blue? Let's see. I like the green, but the greeny blue. It is Cabalite green. Because I think I've already got enough blue on the model with the bluey grey. And some green on the model would look nice. So this subtle dark green, bluey green, whatever it is, will work for a few additional wires. Any wires that I haven't already covered with another colour will be hit with this. And this will be, I don't know, a blue vein equivalent. I'm not thinning this one because it is a layer paint, so it is already a tad thin. So if I did thin it, I would get terrible coverage. And normally, if you don't thin a paint, you clog up the details. However, since what I'm painting here is wires, just a featureless tube. Since it is featureless wires, we don't need to really worry about losing any detail with it. So it's knowing enough about the basics of thinning your paint and which paints to use where, and knowing enough about basics to know when to ignore basic advice. It's still not great, but it works. I should probably look at trying to get a similar colour but with a non-layer paint, a base paint, so I can properly use it without having to worrying about this whole thinning nonsense. Those are some armpit wires done. And then I think there's, what is it, just one more wire here? Yeah. And I do need to find one other, probably metallic colour, so I can paint a few of the extra kind of segmented wires. Might be another place or two I can hit it with the red. Now that I'm looking at it. Just a few other tiny white details I'm noticing while I'm here, and using the green on those while I can to just pick out some more details. That's good. I can actually sit it upside down for resting it on stuff. And then one more wire on this forearm. Just going down the back of the arm and into the forearm armour. And on the other forearm too. Well, on the other arm too. Okay, that is good. Try and make sure it's as close as possible, because I don't want my paints drying out if I can avoid it. Now, where were we with the one last coat of yellow on these initial markings? And that should be alright, so let's see. Remind myself to only peel back the middle two. So let's see how they look. It's hard to see because the masking tape is also yellow, but in my... it's looking pretty good right now. And I want to keep those other two wire masking tape lines on there because I'm now going to go in and hit it diagonally. So let's need to get some more masking tape. What kind of angle are we going for? We're going for 45 degrees. It's a good standard one. Let's check my reference. Yeah, it's 45 degrees. So how long do we need to be? We need them to be that long, and we'll need a few of them, so... just cut a few out right now. One, two, three, four, five, six. Do another 3 more. Sorry if you can't see, I'm just getting some strips of masking tape. Just because I'm going to try and... well, that's probably way longer than I needed. Oh well. And try to just judge it by eye and have like a millimeter space between them. That's good. That's good. That's good. That's good. Howdy. How are you doing? I'm just getting along with my painting. I'm currently trying to paint some hazard stripes on the base, and so I'm masking stuff out, and I'm going to be dry brushing some stuff, dry brushing the lines on. Well, stippling the lines on with the dry brush. Sure, welcome. You getting up to much hobby stuff? Turns out I definitely didn't need that many masking tape lines, but oh well. Ooh, making a Kratos tank float. You're putting some anti-grav plates on it, using kit bashing it with one of the Primaris repulsors. That's a modern float tank, isn't it? Okay, so I got my masked off base. Masked off differently, it's now got the diagonal masking, so I'm gonna add on some hazard stripes that way, and I don't know, find something to do with my extra masking tape that I got way too many of. So let's get to stippling. Shaking up my yellow. I'm gonna dab that on. It's got Necron monolith thrusters. Scratch, ooh. It's a heretical use of parts. I mean, far be it from me to say that's tech heresy or anything. How you painting that up? Is that a existing Legion? Is that an original chapter? It's a Kratos tank. Let me look that up just to make sure I've got the right one in mind. Ooh, yeah, Iron Hands, there you go. Nice, appropriate mechanized Legion. Yeah, that's what I was thinking of. It's always cool seeing some other mecha-heavy other other mechanical heavy factions do have their own cool kit bashes. Makes us, oh, that's how they approach that kind of mechanical concept for them, and always a good chance to steal ideas from them too. Because I know it happens in the inverse as well. Like I see a lot of both Iron Hands and Iron Warriors. They like use a lot of similar AdMech kits for conversions. And what else can we do while that layer is drying? Could we do some? We can do some cleanup. So I know I need to re-go over the lines of the Ferrous hands are strongly hinted at being. Ooh, oh yeah, because it's the fancy liquid metal with the. It's basically necrodermis, which is the kind of stuff Necrons are made out of. Because is he the one with the title of the Gorgon? Because he killed that weird thing in a cave, which people speculate was a cryptek protector. Okay, well, just doing some bit of cleanup with some silvers. Yeah, the Gorgon. Yeah, I'm not super knowledgeable about a lot of different about all the Primarchs and everything. If if you can believe it, my interest mostly lies with AdMech, but even then, I'm not. I'm not super up to date on everything lore wise, and there's still a lot of things I don't know. But yeah. That's that silver cleaned up. We need some to the lights on the chest as well. I was about to say, you got any hopes for your Primarch, good old Ferrous, getting a model again? But he's one of the dead ones. Yeah, got beheaded by Fulgrim. I mean, isn't he also? I remember hearing that he's like been seen leading the Legion of the Damned, which are the, I don't know, Imperial Saints, like Space Marines that are flaming skulls, like Angels of Vengeance, Ghost Rider style. tad rough, but it works. And finally cleaning up the light on his head. I think I might need to get a new lead belcher, because this stuff is starting to look a tad weird, like it acts too clumpy, too jelly, too, I don't know, slimy. Hard to explain, but I don't know, can paints go off in a different way? Hmm. Okay, that's that cleaned up. I think we're good for a second layer of the Avalanche Sunset stripes on the base now. There's my brush. There's my yellow. Get some paint on the brush. And one quick coat, and what else can we fix while we're at it? I'm going to clean up some of the orange. Going to do a second coat on the orange wires, and then see if I can take a look at fixing some of the other stripes I masked earlier. Fix that, and then these lines here. Just did try to mask these lines earlier, but these are areas that are too close to other stuff, so hitting it while it was being masked would have probably painted over lines too much and hit some stuff I was trying to avoid. Finally, the side on that side too. And once more, I'm just going to do the inverse and clean up the other side of the line anywhere there the orange got in it shouldn't have with the grey. And that is Mechanica Standard Grey. That side is good, that side is good. That side is a tad patchy. That's good. This side's good. That side needs it, that line taking it a little. That line is cleaned up there. And that is good there too. Just wondering if there's anywhere else I can clean up with the grey while I'm at it. Or is it straight onto the... what should be the final coat of the hazard stripes. Then after that's done, I might... that might be the last thing I do on the painting today. It's been, what? Almost 3 hours now. Good place to wrap it up. Ah, lovely water. Always get way too distracted painting and then forget to drink. Avalanche Sunset. You know what? After this, I'd like to gonna do one more thing after this final base coat of yellow, coat of base on the yellow, coat of yellow on the base. Got there eventually. I'm gonna paint the wires on the base. This big brush is going to be a pain to clean, but whatever. Let's take one or two pieces of masking tape off and see how it looks. That is looking rather nice, if I do say so myself. Nice, I feel confident that that was a successful experiment in that different type of masking, base painting, hazard striping. Got through a fair amount of masking tape doing it, but I've had that masking tape for years, so it's not like I'd be burning through it at a rate too quickly. There we go. So, gonna at least try to clean this big brush. Big brush always a pain in the ass to clean, but it is what it is. That brush is rather yellow now. Ugh. You know what, I think I might have lied again. I might not paint that, well, I might paint the base wires, but I'll do them in another different colour. Because I want it to be, I'll paint it in Warplock Bronze, but then while I've got another metal colour out, I'll pick a few other wires on the Tankhead itself. Should I do it Warplock Bronze? Should I do it also Gold? Do I have any other examples on any other models I could look at to help me decide? It's the base. I go with a dark colour on the base, so I will go with Warplock. That's nice. Metallic colour to use that since it's dark, I'm not too worried about it clashing too much with the model itself, because I always like to go a tone or two darker on the base, just because I want to make sure the complete draw of the focus is the model itself and not the base. And then another dark colour. No, I'm using the warp lock. While I've got the warp lock out, I will do a wire or two here. This big one. And then what other one can I do with that colour too? That other one too. Then I know there is another section of wire on the waist I'd like to hit with this. Okay. And then finally paint the one last wire on the base. And this is going to be another dark colour. Going to go with the red. It is going to be a bit of a pain for me because that does mean I need to then do another big clean of the brush. But while I'm at it, I will clean a bit of the pot itself, because this is a important red I use a lot for, so I don't want the pot to dry up. So I want to make sure there's no paint getting in like the grooves, and so then the lid can close properly, so then it won't dry out. Okay, so that is the wires painted. Just cleaning as much of the brush as quickly as possible because strong red. And since I'm done with my brush now, I'm just making sure it is very clean, still has a tip to it. Before I put the cap on it. That is painting for today wrapped up. If I'm wrapping up painting, I want to make sure my other brush is clean too. Just a quick bit of paint thinner. Just help get as much paint off the brush as possible. Just rinsing it in the cap. Ah, paint thinner stinks. But that is that brush, mostly clean. Let's just get one assembly together. So we can look at overall paint progress. You know, I'm not sure how many more base colors there is to paint after this. Because pretty soon we might be moving on to like the decaling and then the shading and then the highlighting, which would be pretty nice. Yeah. Because I still need to do the contrasts for like the light sections and an extra bit over on the display, like fancy screens on there, and the extra type of, I don't know, corrugated wire. But then if that's all the colours left, then the base colours will be done soon. Then it's contrast, then it's decals, then it's washes, then it's highlighting. So there might be only a few more sessions left of this. But yeah, that is going to be me for the night. Respectable 3 hours, 15 minutes stream. Well, 3 hours. 3 hours, 3.25 hours. But yeah, thank you very much for showing up. And see you around.